Hello there, math leads. Welcome back to Math Jamboree. We have another AP Precalculus question this time. It's from the College Board, and this is a free response questions of 2024. That was the first question, I guess. So let's solve this question together. The figure shows a graph of the function f on its domain of negative 3.5 less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 3.5. The points negative 3 and 1, 0 and 1, and 3 and 1 are on the graph of f. So the function g is given by g of x equals 2.916 times 0.7 to the power of x. I, the function h is defined by hx equals g of x, g of x. Find the value of h3 as a decimal approximation or indicate that is not defined. I, find all the values of x for which f of x equals 1 and or indicate that there are no such values. I, find all values of x as decimal approximations for which g of x equals 2 or indicate that there are no such values. I, determine the end behavior of g as x increases without bound. Express your answer using the mathematical notation of limit. I, determine if f has an inverse function, and I, give a reason for your answer based on the definition of a function and the graph of y equals f of x. So we have limited space actually for the specific question to solve, so that's why I'm going to use the screen as wisely as possible. So for we're talking about, so we're given h of x is equals to g of fx. So this tells us that we're going to substitute 3 for the x. So this means that this will be g 3. And if you will substitute 3 in the f function, where you see the function is given in here, or in the graph, and if you will look at the 3 value, x is 3, go to graph, this points that the value is 1. So technically we're looking for f3 is 1. So we're looking for g1 then. In that case, and so g1 is in the g function, this is given, and we will just go ahead and put 1 for the x. 2.916 times 0.7 to the power of 1. If you will use your calculator, you're allowed to use it in the exam, and you will, if you will use your calculator, you can just make this calculation and you will end up with 2.0412 as your final answer for the AI. So for the I section, and the question is indicating that for which x values f of x is equals to 1. So if you can just pay attention in here, I mean the y value will be equal to 1, right? So you can use a horizontal test as well for this. I mean, you can just draw a horizontal line on which is going to pass through the 1. This is y equals 1. And you will realize that this point, let me show you that with a different color. On this point, this graph is intersecting with the graph on these points, and these are the x values we're talking about. So in this case, we can just go ahead and say that. So f of x equals 1 at x equals negative 3, comma, x equals also 0, and x equals 3. So on these points, these are the function gives values 1. So since I don't have good enough space for the rest of the solutions, I'm just going to erase these to continue with B. You can pause the video and just check if you want to see the solutions previously. So let's continue with the B now, B section. So for the BI we're talking about. So in the BI, so they're saying that if you will just pay attention, g of x equals 2. And so g of x equals 2. G of x equals 2. So if the g of x equals 2, to find the x value, so this means that, doesn't this mean that you know that g value is 2.916 times 0.7 to the power of x will be equals to 2. I mean, in this case, you can use your calculator to calculate this. You will divide, first of all, you can divide both sides by 2.916, and this cancels each other out. 0.7 to the power of x will be equals to, if you will use your calculator, let's use our calculator too. You will have just dividing 2 by 2.916. That's going to give us 0.68, let's say 6 over here. So to find the value of x, you will need to use a logarithmic function in here. If you will use logarithmic function, this will be, you will be able to find the solution of the x. So if you will use the logarithmic function for that, and you will get for the x approximately, say approximately, this is gonna be equal to 1.057 will be the answer for BI. And BII, so for the BII, we have, they want you to use limit to determine the answer. So in that case, we're just going to use limit when x approaches the infinity. What about the g of x? Let me write this. So imagine that you will just, as the x increases, the value of 0.7 in the power will be getting decreased. For instance, how can you determine that? 0.7 to the power of 1 means 7 over 10, right? If you will use square it's going to become 49 over 100. So if you will compare these, then you will see that this number is getting smaller. And if you will just multiply with something smaller to the 2.916 at the infinity, this is going to get closer to the 0, because at the end it's going to be like you're multiplying with a 0. So that's why the answer is 0 for B double I. And let's continue with the C. I'm going to erase here because we don't have space. For CI, so the question is, determine if the f has inverse function. So this doesn't have an inverse function, this function. The easy way to determine this, you will use a horizontal test. Remember, we have vertical line test and horizontal line tests. Vertical line test is just to determine whether if it's a function or not. So for instance, in this question, f function, because if you will use vertical lines, it's going to intersect with the f function only once. But if you will use a horizontal test, for instance, if you will just draw any horizontal line, this is not exactly horizontal, but let's make it as clear as possible, like this. Still, sorry about that. As you can see, this horizontal line is intersecting more than once. If that's the case, this function does not have inverse. We can just say that. So the function f does not have an inverse that is a function. So the inverse will not be a function, because when you flip it over, this is going to be your vertical line test, right? That's why that's the answer for that. For double CI, I need a space. I'll just, sorry about that, need to erase it again. Oops, come on. C double I. In this C double I, so give a reason for your answer based on the definition of the function and the graph of y equals f of x, they said. So if you look at it, on the domain is here, right? Remember? So we can just write that on the domain. On the domain, negative 3.5 less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 3.5. F, we can say, maps a sets of input values. So that each output is mapped to only one output value. However, the inverse relation of f f is not a function. Because each point or instead of saying each point, we can say each output. Same thing. Each output value of f is not mapped from a unique input value. Yeah, as I said, we don't have space in here. So you can play, if you want to see this side, you can just play with the video. That's why I'm going to erase here now. After that explanation, you can also draw this chart to give your reasoning. Still continue with the CII. For instance, for the x values, we have -3, and let's say 0 and 3. So our f of x is 1, 1, 1. So f of x is function, right? Is function. But what about for the inverse function? 1, 1, 1. So if we will draw these, so this becomes -3, 0 and +3. So as you can see that each input goes into different values. Because of that, this relation is not function. So this is how you solve the question on AP free response question. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have questions or comments, you can always leave it below there. Thank you and see you next time. Bye-bye.